When a woman leaves, most men make the same fatal mistake. They rush to explain themselves. They want closure, they want to be heard, and deep down, they just want to be chosen again. But here's what they fail to understand. The more you try to be understood, the more you look like a man who can't stand being left. You start arguing your value instead of living it. And when you argue your worth, it depreciates instantly. Let's be brutally honest for a second. Words don't bring her back. Availability doesn't make her curious. You could write the perfect text, pour your heart out, and even promise to change. But if she's not emotionally receptive, it won't land. All she'll hear is noise, because attraction doesn't respond to logic. It responds to emotional contrast. She doesn't feel your words, she feels your energy shift. The power of silence. She needs to feel the sudden silence of your energy, the absence of your presence, your validation, your emotional access. That silence should interrupt her expectations. She thought you'd chase. She thought you'd explain. But instead, you vanished. Not out of spite, not to punish, but out of power. Most men think staying present, kind, and emotionally available shows strength. But to a woman who has already pulled away, it only confirms one thing, that she still holds emotional control over you. So stop trying to be understood. Stop trying to fix the story in her mind. Instead, become unavailable in every way that used to feed her attention. You don't have to block her. You don't have to act cold. You simply vanish from her emotional radar. And when that happens, when your absence replaces your explanations, it becomes haunting. She starts replaying moments, not because you begged, but because you stopped showing up. The man who becomes unavailable becomes a mystery, and the mystery is what brings her back every time. Psychological truth women are drawn not to comfort but to curiosity. They crave the unknown more than the predictable. When you stop explaining yourself, you stop being predictable. And when she can't predict you, she starts to wonder about you again. That's when the tables turn. Your silence becomes magnetic. Your absence becomes louder than any "I miss you" text could ever be, and your detachment becomes the mirror that reflects her loss. So remember, stop trying to be understood. Start being unavailable. Because the man who vanishes with peace always returns with power. Most men think distance is the enemy. That if she's pulling away, the solution is to run toward her. Say something, do something, close the gap. But here's the truth, no one teaches you. Distance is not the enemy, it's the amplifier. Because a woman doesn't feel the loss while you're chasing her. She only feels it when you stop trying to fix it. That's the foundation of the void. What is the void? When you withdraw, not just your physical presence, but your energy, your attention, your emotional reactions, you create an emotional vacuum. That vacuum used to be filled with your consistency, your reassurance, your attention. And when all of that suddenly disappears, it begins to echo in her world. At first, she might act like she doesn't notice. She'll distract herself, post more, talk to friends, maybe even pretend she's free. But silence has a strange way of sneaking into her thoughts. The quieter you become, the louder her mind becomes. That's what the void does. It forces her to sit with the absence of what once grounded her. Where most men fail. The problem is, most men confuse space with passivity. They think, if I don't act, I'll lose her forever. They panic and reach out. A text here, a reaction there, anything to feel connected again. But true power doesn't chase. True power holds position. It allows the other person to feel the shift without interference. When you stay silent, not out of ego but composure, you communicate strength on a frequency she can't ignore. Your calm detachment becomes contrast to her chaos. Your stillness becomes weight. And weight is what she starts to feel when she lies awake and wonders why you haven't reached out. How to create that void? Stop watching her stories. Stop liking her posts. Don't reply to breadcrumbs. Not the "hey but" message, not the "hope you're okay" check-in. Every time you react, you leak energy. Detach gracefully. Remove yourself completely from emotional exchanges. This isn't revenge. It's not about punishing her. It's about preserving your self-respect, your masculine frame. Women are deeply tuned into energy far more than words. They can feel when a man's attention leaves them, and that's why they come back. Not because of a well-written apology, but because your silence forces them to confront a world without you in it. The psychology behind the void. The man who keeps messaging, watching, hovering, he's easy to forget because he's predictable. But the man who disappears completely, calmly, confidently, becomes unforgettable. Why? Because in psychology, scarcity amplifies value. When something familiar vanishes, the human brain fixates on its absence. It starts to replay memories, moments, even mistakes, just to fill that gap. That's what makes the void echo. It doesn't echo because you shout into it. It echoes because you stop trying to. Her internal conflict. As days pass, she'll scroll through her phone and pause on your name. She'll wonder if you've moved on. She'll check your profile just to see if you're living differently. And she'll start to feel a quiet discomfort because you are supposed to be the one chasing, but you're not. That confusion grows into curiosity. Curiosity turns into reflection. And reflection? That's the seed of regret. You didn't beg. You didn't explain. You simply allowed your absence to speak louder than your words ever could. Your mission. Don't try to close the gap. Let it breathe. Let her feel the weight of silence. While she's thinking about you, you'll be sharpening yourself, working out, reading, building, becoming the man whose energy doesn't orbit around her. Because the truth is, she'll come looking for the man she once felt secure around. But by then, that man will have evolved into something far more powerful. Final reminder, create that void and let it stretch wide. Let her feel how much space you once filled. Don't rush to fill it again, because in that emptiness, she won't just miss your presence, she'll realize what she lost. Here's a hard truth most men never want to face. When she left, she didn't just walk away from you. She walked away from the version of you she thought she had figured out. Most women leave believing one thing, that you'll fall apart without them. They expect you to spiral, to chase, to lose focus, to beg. And when you do exactly that, you confirm her assumptions, you prove her right. But when you don't break, when you evolve instead, when you rise quietly, calmly, and relentlessly, you shatter everything she believed about your value. That's the turning point. Stop fixing the relationship. Fix the man inside it. You want her back? Then stop focusing on her and start focusing on the man you became while you were with her. Ask yourself, where did I lose my edge? Where did I stop leading? Where did I start shrinking just to keep her comfortable? Because that's where you lost yourself, and that's where you rebuild. You don't become magnetic by trying to get her attention. You become magnetic by earning your own respect again. The path to reinvention. Now is the time to rebuild every piece of yourself you neglected. Train with discipline. Read with intensity. Work on your purpose like your life depends on it, because it does. Women are drawn to growth, not comfort, to focus, not validation, to men who evolve, not men who explain. You must become the man who doesn't need her validation, the man who wakes up with a mission and ends each day fulfilled, with or without her. This isn't about pretending to move on, it's about actually moving on. The psychological twist. Here's where most men get it wrong. They try to fake growth just to make her curious. They post the gym selfies, the motivational quotes, the I'm doing fine stories, all while secretly hoping she's watching. That's not power, that's performance. You can't fake evolution to get her back. You must outgrow the need to get her back. Because when you truly grow, when your change is real, she will feel it. Not through your posts, not through your words, but through the energy you radiate. She'll start to notice the difference between the man she left and the man who now stands silently, fully in control of his world. And here's what happens next. She starts watching. She starts questioning. She starts regretting. But none of this works if you're chasing an outcome. It only works when you're becoming the outcome. Evolution, not revenge. Understand this. Becoming this man isn't about revenge. It's not about making her jealous or proving her wrong. It's about rebirth. It's about remembering who you were before the validation, before the overthinking, before you built your self-worth around her attention. You're not doing this to win her back. You're doing this to win yourself back. You rebuild your frame, your presence, your focus, to the point where she no longer defines your worth. Because the day you stop needing her to notice your change is the day she feels it most. When she sees you again, and when that day comes, whether it's next month or next year, she'll see you again, but this time she won't recognize you. Your posture is grounded. Your eyes are calmer. Your words are fewer but sharper. You've become the man she never believed you could be without her. And that realization, that the man she left has outgrown her imagination, that's what creates true regret. You don't have to speak. You don't have to prove. Your silence, your evolution, your presence will say it all. She'll realize she didn't leave the same man who now stands before her. And in that moment, her loss becomes undeniable. You don't have to raise your voice to be heard. Sometimes silence screams the loudest. Most men, when faced with distance, do the opposite. They panic. They overthink. They explain. They chase. They try to fix what can only be felt. But here's the truth. When your energy is anxious, she feels it. When your presence is erratic, she distances further. Because no woman trusts a man who can't even trust his own stillness. The power of stillness. Stillness is not about doing nothing. It's about doing nothing outwardly while everything inside you aligns. It's controlled fire beneath a calm surface. It's emotional control disguised as indifference. When you master stillness, you become unpredictable. And in psychology, the human mind is drawn to what it can't predict. She won't think about the man who always reacts, but she will obsess over the one who didn't, because mystery feeds attraction and restraint amplifies it. How stillness works. Stillness doesn't mean freezing up or ignoring life. It means you stop feeding her story, you stop chasing validation, you stop explaining your side of the breakup over and over again. You no longer try to correct her perception, because the more you fight for her understanding, the more you reinforce her power over your emotions. Stillness means you reclaim your rhythm. You move with grace, with intention. You don't rush, you don't react. You let time and silence do the talking for you. And here's what happens. While she expects an outburst, she's met with peace. While she expects emotion, she's met with composure. That's the moment she starts questioning her decision. When she tests you make no mistake, she will test that stillness. She'll breadcrumb. She'll poke your emotions just to see if you're still affected. She might text something casual. Hey, I saw this and thought of you. She might watch your story. She might flirt just to gauge your reaction. But every time you resist reacting, you grow stronger. Because in silence, you're not just proving something to her, you're proving something to yourself. You're learning emotional control. You're building the kind of masculine restraint that most men never develop. Each moment you stay still while your emotions scream for movement, you're becoming a man of unshakable presence. Why stillness attracts. In a world full of men who overshare, overreact, and overpursue, the calm man stands out like a lighthouse in a storm. He doesn't try to control her. He doesn't try to convince her. He doesn't try to be louder. He simply is. That's what makes him unforgettable, because he carries the weight of silence like a crown. The kind of man who can stand still while everyone else panics. That's the man women never truly forget. The hidden message of stillness. When you stop reacting, she begins to wonder. When you stop chasing, she begins to remember. When you stop explaining, she starts imagining, and imagination is far more powerful than conversation. Your stillness forces her to sit with her doubts, and slowly, those doubts start turning into questions. What if I was wrong? Why isn't he reacting? Why does he seem so calm now? That's when curiosity turns into tension, and that tension, that emotional pull she can't quite explain, is exactly what brings her back closer. Master the calm stillness doesn't mean weakness. It means you've evolved beyond reaction. You've stopped fighting for approval and started standing in your truth. So when she pushes, you don't fall. When she pulls, you don't chase. You stay grounded, calm, present, and quietly powerful. Because in that stillness, you stop being an option and start being the lesson. Make her regret your absence, not miss your messages. Background audio, low drum beats slowly building beneath quiet piano notes. Let's make something very clear. She doesn't miss your texts. She doesn't miss your good mornings, your paragraphs, or your apologies. What she misses, if you do this right, is the man behind them, the stability, the leadership, the masculine grounding that used to center her world. But she'll only feel that loss once you stop trying to remind her of it. Why men lose their power after a breakup. The moment you start over-communicating, over-explaining or chasing, you strip away your power. Every "I just wanted to check on you" text, every "I miss you" message. It doesn't pull her closer, it justifies her leaving. Because if she can still feel your energy at her fingertips, she never has to miss it. You think your words keep you connected, but psychology says otherwise. The human brain can't long for what it can still reach. Regret only forms in absence, not in access. Let her feel the void. So let her feel what life is like without you, not through anger, not through games, but through detached, calm, consistent absence. You're not ignoring her to punish her. You're stepping back to restore your center. When you disconnect gracefully, you create a silence that presses on her subconscious. Because women don't process regret when you're still emotionally available, they process it when they can no longer reach you. When she sits alone and realizes the emotional ground she once stood on is gone, that's when regret is born. The law of emotional gravity. Think of it like gravity. When you chase, you create no space for her to move toward you. But when you pull back and become still, your absence creates a vacuum. And what does gravity do to a vacuum? It pulls everything back toward it. That's why you must allow the space to exist long enough for that pull to take effect. If you rush in too soon, you interrupt the natural law that would have worked for you. The masculine frame. A woman doesn't regret the messages you sent. She regrets losing access to the man who no longer sends them, because that man wasn't desperate, he was anchored. He wasn't pleading, he was present. And when that presence disappears, the emotional balance shifts. She starts to wonder why her world feels a little emptier. She scrolls through memories looking for your energy, but you're not there anymore. That's when she feels the first real wave of regret, not for what you said, but for what she lost. How to hold this frame: 1. Don't reply to breadcrumbs. 2. Don't stalk her pages. 3. Don't announce your change, embody it. 4. Don't explain why you're silent, own it. Silence done with dignity is a language she will eventually learn to read. The moment you pull your energy back, her mind starts doing the chasing. Because in the absence of your presence, her ego has to confront something it doesn't like. That you might actually be okay without her. Shift your focus. Don't make this about revenge. Make it about rebirth. While she's over-analyzing your silence, you're recentering your life. You're training, building, creating something that outlasts the relationship. Because the moment your life starts moving forward without her, you become a symbol of stability she can't find anywhere else. When she finally feels it, it won't happen overnight. It might take weeks, it might take months. But the day will come when she scrolls through her memories, and for the first time, she'll feel the difference between attention and presence. That's when she'll miss you. Not for your words, but for your energy. Not for your texts, but for your silence. Because that's what absence does. It turns into mirror. And in that mirror, she finally sees what she walked away from. The moment distance appears, the instant silence begins. They panic. They feel that emptiness like a storm closing in and rush to fill it. She pulls away, and he texts. She grows distant. and he plans some grand gesture to bring her back. But that instinct, that fear of space, is the very thing that destroys attraction. Because every time you rush to close the gap, you send one powerful silent message. I can't exist without you. And nothing kills attraction faster than dependence. Why space matters power lies in stillness. Control lives in restraint. When you learn to hold the line, to let the gap breathe, you shift from needing her attention to commanding respect. Let her wonder. Let her feel the distance she created. Let her stare into the quiet she thought she wanted. When you stop trying to close that gap, you become the mirror of her decision. She's forced to face the emptiness that followed her choice. Because the truth is, she can't miss you if you never let her feel your absence. The masculine art of holding the frame. You must learn to hold your emotional position the way a general holds ground in battle, with discipline, not desperation. Don't rush forward to reclaim her. Don't explain yourself again. Don't send a text just to test the water. Hold your frame. Every time you do nothing, you're not being passive. You're being strategic. You're allowing her mind to wander through the silence you created. And in that silence, something powerful happens. Her curiosity begins to outweigh her pride. The psychology behind the gap. When you give her space, you activate a psychological trigger called perceptual contrast. It's the brain's way of re-evaluating something once it's no longer easily available. Before, she could reach you anytime. Your presence was guaranteed. Now, it's uncertain. And uncertainty breeds attraction far more effectively than consistency ever could. She starts replaying the times you reached out first, the moments you were always there, and she begins to wonder, what changed? Why did he stop chasing? That question is the beginning of her emotional pursuit. Let her cross the space. If she's meant to come back, let her cross that space on her own. Because if you chase her across it, you rob her of the very experience that would have brought her back. She must feel the weight of her own choice. She must reach for the man she once took for granted. Every step she takes back toward you, every message she sends first, every glance that lingers longer than before, that's not weakness. That's the natural consequence of your restraint. Reversal of power. When you no longer rush to close the gap, you shift from being the pursuer to being the prize. And that's when everything changes. She begins to feel the imbalance she created. Her mind starts working overtime, trying to decode your silence, to explain your detachment, to understand why the man who once begged for her attention now walks with quiet certainty. That's what makes her chase. Not manipulation, magnetism. The law of stillness. If you ever feel the urge to reach out, stop. Take a deep breath and remind yourself. The man who moves first loses position. You're not playing games, you're holding your standard. You're teaching her and reminding yourself that your peace is not negotiable. If she truly values you, she will cross the gap. And when she does, she'll respect the man who didn't collapse under emotion. Because strength in silence always speaks louder than comfort in conversation. Most men are obsessed with timing, but in the wrong way. They think if they just act fast enough, text at the perfect moment, or say the right words before she forgets them, they can somehow reverse what happened. But timing isn't about speed, it's about space. Because in reality, time is your greatest ally, not your enemy. Why time works? When words don't. When you stop talking, truly stop, something changes in the atmosphere. Your silence begins to breathe. It starts to move through her world like a shadow she didn't expect. At first, it's nothing. Then, it becomes noticeable. And over time, it becomes heavy. You see, when communication ends, the mind doesn't. It fills in the blanks. It starts to wonder, to replay, to overthink. And that's where your power quietly builds. Because curiosity doesn't come from your words. It comes from your absence over time. The slow burn of curiosity, when she doesn't hear from you for days, then weeks. Her mind starts to drift, not with logic, but with emotion. What is he thinking? Why hasn't he said anything? Why does he seem fine without me? Each question digs deeper into her psychology, and here's the beauty of it. She doesn't realize that she's reattaching herself to the very man she once detached from. That's the power of time. It rewires emotion while you stay still. The reset effect. When someone stops being exposed to your energy daily, two things can happen. They either forget you, or they start missing the version of you that once made them feel grounded. And which one occurs depends entirely on your energy before you left and your discipline after you leave. If you talk too soon, you reset the clock. You remove the mystery. You relieve her from the discomfort of wondering what went wrong. But if you stay silent long enough, you let the silence do something your words never could. You let it sink in. The psychological truth about time. Here's the part most men don't understand. The brain doesn't process loss instantly. It processes it in waves. At first, she'll feel freedom, relief, distraction. But as weeks pass, those feelings fade, and in their place comes the echo, that haunting, quiet voice asking, "Did I make a mistake?" That's the emotional gravity you've been waiting for. Not created by begging or logic, but by time and absence. Because time, when paired with silence, becomes pressure, and pressure reveals truth. The Stoic advantage. While she's adjusting to the silence, you're not waiting. You're building. You're not checking her page, you're improving yours. You're not rewinding the story, you're rewriting it. Because a man who uses time for transformation doesn't just win her attention, he wins his identity back. And when she finally sees you again, months later, stronger, calmer, sharper, she won't remember the man she left. She'll see the one time forged in silence. Let time rewrite the story. Let the days pass. Let the weeks go. Let her scroll through old photos with no new memories being added. Let time itself become the storyteller. Because every day she doesn't hear from you, you're not fading, you're deepening. You're turning from a memory into a mystery. And in human psychology, mystery always returns. She'll come back, not because you begged, but because time showed her what your silence never said out loud. Here's the paradox most men never master. The harder you try to get her back, the less she feels the need to return. But the moment you stop needing her, stop obsessing, stop attaching your future to her presence, everything changes. Because power doesn't come from being chosen. Power comes from choosing yourself. Liberation over attachment. You need to become the man who no longer requires her return to feel whole. This isn't detachment out of bitterness, it's liberation through awareness. You reclaim every part of yourself you once outsourced to her. Her opinion, her attention, her validation. Ask yourself, who am I when she's not watching? Who am I when no one texts back? Who am I when there's no audience to perform for? That man, the one who exists when the world goes silent, is your real power. The man who evolves without permission? Stop waiting for closure. Stop waiting for her to notice. Stop waiting for life to hand you the permission to move forward. The man you're becoming doesn't ask for acknowledgement. He moves because movement is who he is. He grows because growth is his nature. He builds because creation is how he heals. That's what women sense but can't explain. The shift from seeking to be seen to simply being. The quiet flip of energy. Once you stop orbiting around her, something powerful happens. The energy reverses. She feels it. Your silence no longer feels like punishment. It feels like independence. Your detachment no longer looks like coldness. It looks like evolution. You begin walking, speaking, living differently. Not louder, but deeper. Not to prove a point, but to embody one. And that quiet confidence, that's the kind of energy no one can fake and no woman can ignore. The moment she returns, when she comes back, and yes, she probably will, you won't be waiting at the door. You'll be in motion, on your path, focused on the life you've built, And she'll realize something haunting. You're no longer the man she left. You're the man she can't control. That's the ultimate paradox of attraction. The moment you no longer need her return is the moment she starts to feel drawn back toward you. Rebirth over reunion. You see, the goal was never to get her back. It was to get you back. The calm, the focus, the direction, the self-respect that can't be shaken by anyone's absence. You don't chase love. You radiate it through strength, peace, and purpose. And the more you grow into that version of yourself, the more the universe, and sometimes even she, will bend toward your gravity. But by then, it won't even matter, because you'll have outgrown the need for external validation. True power. When she sees you again, she'll see a man who no longer measures his worth by attention. A man who looks her in the eye, calm and centered, and thinks, I wish you well, but I'm good either way. That's the peak of masculine energy. Not revenge, not indifference. Peace. You don't control others. You master yourself. You don't seek her back. You seek your higher self. That's the man she can't forget, and the one you were always meant to become. When a relationship ends, most men spiral into the same question. What did I do wrong? They replay every conversation, every mistake, every effort they made, trying to fix what was already broken. But here's the truth most never realize. Effort doesn't make someone stay. Presence does. She doesn't remember your effort. She feels your absence. You can spend months trying, texting, proving, explaining, but the human mind doesn't remember quantity of effort. It remembers impact of presence. What she truly feels after you're gone isn't your gestures. It's the void that used to be filled by your energy. That's what hits her at 2 a.m. when the room feels too quiet. That's what she notices when she laughs. But it doesn't hit the same. She's not missing the gifts, the calls, the late night talks. She's missing the foundation you once were. The man she remembers. She'll start to remember the version of you who had direction, who led with calm certainty, who carried masculine steadiness like armor. That's the version she underestimated, the one who gave her peace without ever saying a word. But when you vanish, that stability vanishes with you. And suddenly the world that felt secure now feels uncertain. That's when she starts to feel the void. Why the void creates value. Scarcity creates value. It's not manipulation, it's psychology. When you disappear with dignity, you shift from something she expects to something she remembers. The human brain assigns higher value to anything it can no longer easily reach. So while you're out building your life again, she's quietly re-evaluating what she lost. She doesn't miss the hours you spent trying to fix things. She misses the feeling of being anchored by your quiet strength. Disappear with dignity. That's your power. Not cutting her off with anger, not posting revenge quotes, not showing you're doing better. Just disappear with dignity. No reaction, no closure, no chase. Because closure isn't given. It's earned through stillness. Let her sit with the silence long enough to realize the truth. She didn't lose a man who tried too little. She lost a man who was too solid to replace. Her realization weeks will pass, then months. She'll go on with her life, but something will feel off. She'll date other men, but none will match the energy you had. And one day she'll understand the difference between effort and essence. You didn't just make her feel loved, you made her feel safe. And safety, once lost, is irreplaceable. That's the void she'll feel forever. The lesson: stop trying to make her remember what you did. Let her remember what you were. Because when a woman truly feels the absence of a man who once centered her world, she doesn't compare texts or conversations. She compares how every other man makes her feel less safe, less grounded, less alive. And that's when your value returns, without you saying a single word. Here's the final moment most men destroy without realizing it. She comes back, and he's still the same. Still emotional, still reactive, still waiting for her approval. But if you've done everything right, the silence, the discipline, the evolution, then yes, there's a high chance she'll return. The question isn't, Will she come back? It's who will she find when she does. The common trap. Most men break the cycle right at the finish line. She returns, and they crumble back into the version she left, the one who over-explained, over-gave, and over-pursued. But if you open the door as the same man, you don't inspire respect, you invite repetition. So here's the truth. You must not be the same version of yourself when she comes back, because the goal was never to get her back. It was to outgrow the need for her validation. The man of evolution. When she returns, she should feel like she's walking into a new world, one where your presence feels grounded, your eyes carry calm certainty, and your boundaries speak louder than your words ever did. She should sense that she no longer has emotional power over you, not because you're playing games, but because you've evolved beyond needing anyone to complete you. That's not ego, that's evolution. Reunion or rebirth. The game was never about revenge, it was about reinvention. When she comes back, she should feel like a guest in your life, not the center of it. She should meet a man who doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't explain. A man who smiles with peace because he's already built something far greater than her approval. Self-respect. That's what shakes her to her core. The realization that the man she once took for granted has become a man she no longer deserves. The power shift. She left believing she had control over how the story ends. But when she returns, she'll discover that you rewrote it without her. You no longer need to convince her of your worth because your life now embodies it. You don't need to post about success. You live success in your silence, your habits, your discipline. You've become the man whose validation comes from purpose, not from a text, not from attention, not from her reaction. And that quiet power? That's what women never truly recover from. If she returns, if she comes back, accept it with calm. Look her in the eye and listen. But don't fold. You owe no explanations, no resentment, no chasing. You simply decide if her presence aligns with your peace. And if it doesn't, you walk away with dignity. Because the moment she realizes that your silence turned into strength and your detachment turned into peace, she'll understand she didn't leave a man behind. She created one. If she doesn't return, then you still win. Because you became the man who doesn't need her to. You became whole. You found clarity in solitude and purpose in pain. The world now moves with you, not against you. You've learned the highest form of control, not reacting, just becoming. And in that stillness, you've become unstoppable. The final truth. So when she comes back, if she does, remember this. You don't prove anything. You don't explain anything. You don't compete for her affection. Because now you are the prize. She'll feel the difference. She'll see it in your calm. She'll hear it in your voice. And she'll realize she didn't lose you because she left. She lost you because you outgrew who you were when she did. If this message spoke to you, don't just scroll. Act. Comment. I am reborn. Share this with a man who needs to hear the truth about silence, evolution, and self-respect. And hit subscribe to Stoic Masculinity, where men stop chasing validation and start becoming legends. Because remember, silence isn't weakness, it's evolution, and the man who masters it never loses again.